This is TOEFL IBT speaking test, and this test evaluates your ability to communicate in English in an academic setting. It consists of 4 tasks. Task 1, express an opinion on a familiar topic. Conversation, woman, did you see the email about the gym's new policy? Man, yeah, I read it. Honestly, I'm not really a fan of it. Woman, why not? I thought you hated waiting in line for the treadmills. Man, true, but the problem is I usually work out at random times, depending on when I'm free. With this system, I'll have to plan days ahead, and my schedule changes all the time. If I book a slot and something comes up, I might miss it. Woman, but won't it help you avoid wasting time just standing around? Man, maybe, but I'm also worried people will book slots and not show up. That'll leave machines sitting unused while others are waiting. Plus, sometimes I like to do longer workouts, more than 30 minutes, and now I'd have to stop in the middle or book another slot, which might not be available right after. Woman, I guess I can see how that could be frustrating. Lecture, Professor. A fascinating example of camouflage mimicry can be seen in the leafy sea dragon, a marine animal closely related to the seahorse. The leafy sea dragon has long, thin extensions along its body that resemble the fronds of floating seaweed. What's remarkable is that these extensions are not used for movement, they exist purely for disguise. When predators approach, the sea dragon gently sways its body, imitating the natural motion of seaweed in ocean currents. This movement, combined with its leaf-like appearance, makes it almost impossible to distinguish from real plants. Because the sea dragon is a slow swimmer and can't escape quickly, this form of mimicry is essential to its survival. Without it, the animal would be far more vulnerable to fish and other marine predators. Scientists believe that the leafy sea dragon's camouflage mimicry evolved over millions of years to adapt to its specific habitat in the shallow, plant-filled coastal waters of southern Australia. Task 4, Integrated Speaking, Extended Version, Lecture, Listening, 110-120 seconds. Professor, today, I want to discuss thermal updrafts and how large birds use them to travel long distances with minimal energy. Thermal updrafts are rising columns of warm air that form when sunlight heats the Earth's surface unevenly. For example, open fields and rocky areas warm up faster than nearby lakes or shaded forests. As the warm air rises, it creates invisible vertical currents that can lift anything light enough to be carried, including birds like eagles, vultures, and storks take advantage of these air currents by circling within them to gain altitude without flapping their wings. Once they've reached a high enough height, they glide forward toward their next destination, searching for another updraft. This method allows them to cover hundreds of kilometers while using very little energy, which is essential during long migrations or when searching for food over large areas. What's interesting is that these birds have developed the ability to spot thermal updrafts by observing the landscape and watching other birds. For instance, if a vulture sees another bird suddenly rising without much wing movement, it's a sign that an updraft is there. This behavior not only conserves energy but also increases survival chances, as the birds can travel long distances without exhausting themselves.
I believe children should start learning a second language in kindergarten because it provides many long-term advantages in both language development and overall growth. At a young age, children's brains are extremely flexible, making it easier for them to absorb new sounds, words, and grammar naturally. For example, kids who begin learning a second language early often develop better pronunciation and fluency than those who start later in middle school. In addition, learning a language early can boost their cognitive skills, such as memory, problem solving, and critical thinking, because managing two languages exercises the brain in unique ways. Early language learning also fosters cultural awareness and curiosity, helping children understand and appreciate different traditions, which can improve their social skills and adaptability. Moreover, starting young allows them to use the language in play and everyday activities, making learning enjoyable rather than stressful. For all these reasons, I strongly believe that beginning a second language in kindergarten is far more beneficial than waiting until middle school. The man does not like the new gym reservation policy, and he gives several reasons for his opinion. First, he finds the system inconvenient because he usually works out at random times depending on his free schedule, and now he would have to plan his workouts days in advance, which limits his flexibility. Second, he is concerned that if he books a slot and something unexpected comes up, he might miss it, wasting his reserved time. Third, he worries that some students might reserve slots and not show up, leaving machines unused while others wait, which defeats the purpose of reducing wait times. Finally, he points out that the 30-minute time limit is too short for his usual workouts, so he might have to stop in the middle or reserve multiple slots, which could be difficult if the next available slot is already taken. Overall, he feels that the new policy creates more problems than it solves and prefers the old first-come, first-served system. Camouflage mimicry is a survival strategy in which an organism imitates the appearance, color, shape, or movement of another object or organism to avoid being seen by predators. The lecture gives the example of the leafy sea dragon, a marine animal closely related to the seahorse. This sea dragon has long, leaf-like extensions covering its entire body, making it almost indistinguishable from pieces of floating seaweed. When a predator approaches, the sea dragon sways gently, imitating the natural movement of the seaweed in the water. This combination of appearance and motion makes it extremely difficult for predators to detect the animal, even though it is a slow swimmer and cannot escape quickly on its own. Scientists believe that this form of mimicry evolved over millions of years as an adaptation to the sea dragon's shallow coastal habitat in southern Australia. In addition, this camouflage not only protects the sea dragon from predators but also allows it to approach its prey, such as small crustaceans, without being noticed. Overall, the leafy sea dragon's camouflage mimicry is an excellent example of how animals use both appearance and behavior to survive and thrive in their environment. Thermal updrafts are rising columns of warm air that form when sunlight heats the Earth's surface unevenly, such as when open fields, rocky areas, or dry land warm faster than lakes, forests, or shaded regions. According to the lecture, large birds like eagles, vultures, and storks take advantage of these updrafts to gain height without flapping their wings, which saves a significant amount of energy, especially during long-distance flights. The birds circle within the warm rising air to ascend gradually, and once they reach a high altitude, they glide forward toward the next updraft, repeating this process over long distances. This technique allows them to travel hundreds of kilometers with minimal physical effort. The professor also explained that these birds can detect thermal updrafts by observing other birds. For example, if a vulture notices another bird rising without much wing movement, it indicates the presence of a warm column of air. By using thermal updrafts, birds not only conserve energy but also increase their chances of survival during migrations or while searching for food. This strategy demonstrates how birds have adapted their behavior to make the most of natural environmental conditions.